Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. All right. So it's the new moon. We have the opportunity to practice. I'd like to offer some words on a Dhamma theme this evening. And the theme that I've been working on, developing, part of the local community is we do groups together and we try to apply our mind to different themes. And the theme of the week has been mudita. And so this is a very wonderful state, a very beautiful emotion, and one that doesn't get a lot of press. So I think this is as good a time as any to appreciate this wholesome emotion. So what is mudita? The closest English words we have are a nod to the fact that we don't have an actual concept in the English language and therefore the Western culture of mudita. And mudita deals with the delight or satisfaction in success, in good fortune, in accomplishment, in gain. And we have a bunch of words for the opposite of mudita, such as envy, jealousy, avarice, covetousness. But our closest equivalents in English are maybe joy, sympathy, appreciative joy, appreciation. It's this sense of seeing something good happen for somebody and feeling joy and delight. So maybe even gladness or joy themselves point to this state of mudita. But for the purposes of this Dhamma reflection, I'll just use the word mudita because this is something that in Buddhist circles and meditation circles, even the word exists in Sanskrit. So in Hindu and yoga circles as well, we're just using the word mudita as a recognition of this is a mind state, and this is the best word we have for it, because in Eastern cultures, this is known and it's appreciated and it's considered its own thing, however much we struggle to quantify it in Western culture. And that's the beginning of appreciating this state, is coming to know it, coming to think about it, coming to develop a vocabulary around it. So just hearing there is this really, really wholesome emotion called appreciative joy or gladness, gets our gears turning. There's actually no mudita sutta. There's no categorical teaching of the Buddha on mudita, and it's not until the later commentaries that it's even talked about in any depth at all. And part of this, and part of the reason mudita gets kind of shelved as, this quiet little, don't really know where to put it, member of the list of heavenly emotions, the brahma-viharas, is because it deals it deals with unwholesome states that we don't usually relate to ill will. So straight up hate, we understand that you'd want to develop loving kindness or goodwill for that. Cruelty, we understand you'd want to develop compassion to really empathize and understand the suffering of others. And equanimity is easy to see how that applies to any feeling of resentment around right and wrong is balanced out by an understanding that the world operates based on karmic principles, not based on feelings or our own internal sense of justice. But then we have mudita, which which undercuts feelings of jealousy, feelings of competition, feelings of unfairness, that somebody else has something nice and we don't. So it really, by the feeling tone, it seems like it's dealing more with greed than it is dealing with ill will. And in the lists where the Buddha talks about ways to deal with ill will and resentment and grudge holding, the Buddha doesn't include mudita. Part of this is not because mudita is a lower category of emotion, but because it is a higher category of emotion. It is a more subtle mind state, and it requires more wisdom. So for instance, when the Buddha talks about things that we can develop to help us get over a grudge, delighting in the success of our enemy is not one of those things we're encouraged to do. Because delighting in somebody's ill-gotten gains or delighting in somebody's delight in causing pain to another is not based in wisdom. And so mudita actually requires a certain amount of wisdom to see which states are actually beautiful states, states which are joyful, states which are profitable, states which will bring true happiness to the person who experiences them. We've got to actually understand a little bit about karma and where good fortune really comes from, that being good action creates good results. We have to have some intuitive sense of that to know what is actually good fortune and what seems in the moment like, oh, they got what they wanted, versus what is actually somebody getting something good and beautiful, high quality and appreciable. And so in the brahma-viharas, mudita is classed as the third state of four. So it's considered to be more subtle in the Theravada teachings, at least, than goodwill or compassion. And when the Buddha talks about states of existence, there is a realm for those beings that have absolutely perfected their sense of mudita or appreciation and joy. And this is equivalent to those who have mastered the third jhana. These are a high level of deva beings with very concentrated minds. And if you're born into that realm, you'll live there for between 16 and 64 eons, from Big Bang until Big Crunch. That's one eon. So the universe is going to be doing a lot of moving along, and you'll just be in this highly rarefied state of immense joy. So it's not a tiny thing. But when we first hear about it, we tend to think it is a tiny thing. We tend to think that this is a kind of gullible and naive state. that silly guy is taking joy in somebody else being happy. It seems like something anybody with it seems like something a child could do, whereas goodwill or compassion or equanimity, these seem like much more powerful emotions, much more informed emotions. But it's actually worth appreciating how much more energy it takes to do that, to see somebody be successful and to just be intrinsically, deeply happy about it. Well, why would that be? If I haven't kind of pointed at it yet, maybe I'll ask the question, what about our games? Yeah. Why do our games have winners and losers? And once we ask that question, it gets us looking at something we maybe don't realize is the causal root of our jealousy is the belief that success, joy, accomplishment, gain are finite things. Yeah? We believe that things of high quality have to be owned. Things of high quality will belong to somebody, that only one person can truly win a game. And this is, it's so interwoven in the way that we lead our lives, in the way that we exist in reality. This belief that goodness is a limited thing, that resources are finite, that happiness is finite. And it's true enough, there are things that are of higher quality than other things. And so it's built into our mind as well to resist the letting go of beautiful things, and to therefore want to possess them. So there's, as we begin to look at this mind state, it starts with us simply noting, be like, okay, somebody had something good happen to them. And it's like, I don't feel happy for them. Maybe I should practice mudita. And this enters our vocabulary. And it's even, I encourage you to start doing this. Like somebody says, hey, I just got a new job. And just say mudita. And they'll be like, well, what does that mean? It means I'm happy for you. It means that's great. That's awesome. This is so nice. And so we begin to, people would be like, oh, that's neat. Because usually what do? We might be sarcastic, or we might be like, yeah, you got a new job, but you drive a crappy car. And we try to tamp it down a little, right? It's like, oh yeah, they did something good, or they were really successful, or they were really smart, but they're still really greedy, or, well, they're still kind of clumsy, or, yeah, but look at their haircut. We try to balance things out. And this is a basic thing that we do, and we don't even realize we do it. So to just catch ourselves is the beginning of the unraveling of this process. Yeah. To just be like, that's great. That's amazing. And at first it's very natural to think of these mind states, the brahma-viharas, as things that we feel for others. And so this idea of joy or gladness is one thing, but often and when it's described as sympathetic joy or empathetic joy, like joy in somebody else's happiness. But when we get into the deepest levels of this mind state, we realize it is an impersonal, unselfish mind state. So the idea of self and other doesn't really exist. And this is where this idea of being happy for someone else and being happy become two different things. So we see somebody have something good happen to them, and we don't think, oh, I'm happy for them, because that would still be us trying to put ourselves in the scenario. As we begin to develop this, and it requires development. Greed and jealousy are essential, basic parts of our personality that have to be acknowledged, that have to be understood and then uprooted. But once we start to turn to it, then we see somebody successful and we're like, that's great. Or we experience success ourselves, and we don't fear that success is going to go away. We're like, oh, that's great. This is good fortune. This is nice. And we appreciate it in a way that doesn't hold on. We share it. And this is where the idea of sharing of merits comes into Buddhism as well. And it's talked a lot about in the Theravada tradition, is this idea when we do something good to not try to possess it, to not see goodness as finite or limited or belonging to somebody, but to immediately, whenever something good happens or we receive something good, to immediately open it up and start to share it and be like, come one, come all, take part in this. It's a recognition that when something good happens and somebody appreciates that something good, that appreciation increases the goodness of the event. In this way, goodness, when we don't see it as limited, is exponential. You know, somebody gets a new job, and the person next to him is like, "That's really good. You work really hard, and you get a recognition. This is awesome. You know, way to go." And then somebody else hears that person congratulating them, and even though they're like, "Well, I really would have liked to get that job," but they hear somebody else being so happy for that person that they themselves feel happy. And it's like, that's really nice. They're really happy, genuinely happy for that person. And it makes them happy. They're like, you know, it is great that they got that job. And before you know it, only one person got the job, but everybody in the workplace is happy, is content. Even the people whose jobs didn't change, even the people whose salaries didn't change. Everybody is appreciating everybody else. And this is where this becomes a brahma-vihara. These are celestial abodes of heavenly beings. Because when this becomes a pure mind state, it very much mimics the state of those beings who have attained to the third jhana, the third level of meditative absorption, where the characteristic is of a pure mindfulness. And there is still a sense of a body or a person, you know, was still, we kind of know I'm here, but that experience is pervaded with sukha or bliss. And so this mind state, when fully cultivated, it not only uproots ill will, which is what the brahma-viharas are often pointed to, but it uproots at the same time the basis of all greed, because we reach a state of contentment with every fiber of our experience. And a lot of this is dependent on us letting go of that idea of limits, that happiness or goodness or things of high quality are limited. While it's true, these things don't last forever. When we start to open up and be content and alive and joyful about our experience, we realize that the next happiness is just around the corner. Yeah? The Dalai Lama is quoted as a very nice quote that's made the rounds. He said, you know, when you're just focused on your own happiness, this provides limited opportunities for happiness. But when you start to take delight in the happiness of others, oh, so many more opportunities for happiness. And this is the abode of, you know, very high celestial beings, is that they have the capability of delighting in the success and happiness and good fortune of any being that they come into contact with. And even should they not come into contact with any other being, they could fully appreciate, from a place of non-grasping, their own good fortune in dwelling in that state. And in that way, it is a state that, once cultivated, is this sort of feedback loop. It creates contentment through appreciating contentment. And it just speeds and circles and grows. And this is why in the cosmology of these things, it can last so incredibly long, because the only way you could fall out of that state is to just stop appreciating. Because somewhere along the line, the idea that, you know, hey, I want something else, or I want something that's not here right now, has to enter in. And until that happens, one is just satisfied, deeply, deeply satisfied with their experience. And so this is something I encourage. This being the Uposatha, we've done good. We've been cultivating some contentment. We've been taking it easy. We've been keeping our sila, and we've gathered to share practice and meditation and Dhamma together. We appreciate that and have that sense of sharing the merit. Just think of all the people in our life that wouldn't it be great if they too were sitting here in the room and experiencing that and having that peace, and then opening up to all beings in the world, and just seeing if we can touch, even if just for a moment, that sense of it's all right, that sense of gladness, and any opportunity for happiness. It doesn't matter who is happy, is a good moment. Yeah. And that this is that state, that mind state, and use it. I highly encourage it. Mudita is such a wonderful way of developing harmony in our communities, in our workplaces, in our relationships. Just let the other people be happy, and then when we're happy, be earnestly happy, and share it, and the more this becomes our baseline, the more that we see it always feels like there's enough. It always feels like things are working. It always feels like it doesn't matter who's on top. And this is the place where all the games, all the competition, all the feeling of lack can finally cease. And when we say cease in Buddhism, it's the word nirodha. It's more than simply it'll end. It's that it'll end and it'll never need to come back. This is a powerful state, and this is what we refer to when we talk about nibbana, that the heart through this mind state can achieve a level of peace where it will let go of any need to revisit states of lack, states of discontent, dissatisfaction, or jealousy. And so this is something we can appreciate now, and we can develop, and may it develop in your life and my life and the life of all beings. And I offer this reflection for your practice this evening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.